everybody, I'm Chef Marshall O'Brien, and welcome to Cooking with Confidence. I am super excited you're here tonight, and we get to be cooking together in the kitchen. We put this show together to help you build confidence and skills in the kitchen so you can provide great tasting meals, to help you have some control with your meal planning, to get a little stress out of your life, and to teach you how to nourish and not just feed you or your family. So we've got these awesome recipes coming your way every week, 5:30 p.m. Central Time, and I can't wait to have you participate with us today. It's going to be absolutely delicious. All right, tonight's recipe, we have a balsamic glazed salmon with asparagus and potatoes. Now, before we get into that recipe, got to think about a couple things. Are you watching right now and you're saying, hey, where are these ingredients you're talking about? Or where's the recipe? Well, if you didn't get the recipe, get the ingredients like I have today, you are going to want to sign up in the links below in the comments there so that you can participate. The whole point is to be in the kitchen with you, cooking up a great meal for you to serve for yourself or your family or whomever you are enjoying that meal with. Okay, why don't we get into tonight's recipes? And by the way, folks, last week, if you prepared the dish and you took a picture, put it in the comments because we had some people that actually did that. We were having a little bit of controversy. Can you add pictures to the comments or can't you? Well, the answer is yes, you can. So definitely, as you're going through the recipe with me and you have questions, ask them. I will answer them, all right? See, Samuel's already, we're right there. Code 42, I miss you too, man. I hope you're doing well. I want to watch your videos again. It's been a while. Thanks for tuning in, Samuel. I appreciate it. This is what it's all about, folks. Have you participate. We're going to cook up some awesome stuff. So let's get started. All right, for this recipe, the first thing that we're going to do for our balsamic glazed salmon with the asparagus potatoes is obviously make sure you have your ingredients. And then we're going to start by getting our oven preheated at 450. So that's the first thing you want to do. Make sure that you have everything in place. I've got my ingredients. I got my pan. I got it nice and lined with a little foil and parchment paper. I'm all set. Got the oven going, 450 degrees. Might have to go a little less, maybe a little more, depending on how your oven works. But like last week, another simple recipe, and it tastes fantastic. Those of you that made last week's recipe, let us know in the chat box how did it taste. Got a lot of positive feedback, and I love the fact that you're actually going through the motions with me. Now, the good news is we will have this posted on YouTube, on the Cooking with Confidence YouTube channel in case you missed. You can't watch it live because you're not, Anyways, moving forward. All right, really excited about this, obviously. We're going to start by getting the marinade made. The marinade is very, very simple. We're going to have some balsamic vinegar. Add that to our bowl here. Now, usually I get grief from my life partner about using a bowl that is too small and it overflows. But I think today I did it. Speaking of which, I want you to know that your questions are going to be relayed from my right-hand gal, off to your right, my left, but my right-hand gal, Miss Jonna, or Mrs., because it's my life partner here. So I'm very, very fortunate. Any questions you have, comments you have, please put them in the, oh, is that Laura Mahler? Great to have you on tonight. Thank you for being here. Anyways, we're making our balsamic glazed salmon here. I had some honey, little chef tip for you. If you want to get all fancy and prepare like with the ingredients, and who the heck is going to do that at home, right? You're just going to squeeze it out of the bottom. Well, let's just say you happen to have it in the container because you're waiting. You got it in a little vessel waiting to assemble, and you're using honey. If you line that little vessel, that bowl, I had the same problem last week trying to call, or some webinar, I didn't know how to call this, a bowl, a thing. Just line it with a little bit of olive oil or any kind of neutral tasting oil, and then put your honey in there. It will easily slide out. Very, very slick. Just do that little around the edges. Easy, easy. There's a little tip for you. All right, we've added the balsamic vinegar, the mustard, and we went with a Dijon mustard. Of course, there's all sorts of mustards. This is going to have the Dijon mustard. That's what we're going for. You could certainly use a stone ground mustard if you want. I would stay away from yellow mustard. I do love that with my hot dog and with my fries, but we're not making that tonight. A little bit of salt and pepper we're going to pop in there. All right, we're missing one thing. What are we missing? Anybody? Who's following at home tonight? What have I not put in there? Anybody? Anybody? I'll tell you. Some thyme. Okay? How much thyme? About 10 minutes to stir this. Just kidding. Fresh thyme. we're going to use some fresh thyme. How many of you grow thyme or any kind of fresh basils in your garden? Basil, mint, thyme. If you grow fresh herbs, well, there's different varieties. So really think about, like, when you are growing fresh herbs, what are the kind that are really helping you, like what are easy to prepare? For example, I got this thyme here, okay? Let's get camera 3 on this. You got this little thyme stuff. I'm going to be totally honest with you folks. To pluck these leaves on is a royal pain in the butt, and who's going to want to do that? So what I suggest is when you're working with fresh herbs, just make sure that they're easy to handle. And I should have paid more attention when I picked this up at the grocery store. I would have grown it, but my plants are dead now. But anyways, when you are looking for the herbs used, obviously make sure that it's what you want. And then number 2, there's different kinds of thyme. And you'll notice, like, this thyme happens to be really thin, really leggy, and the leaves are kind of hard to pull off. The good news is, because these stems are very tender, as long as you get the thyme off the thick stems, you can just chop that up, and it will be very, 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 very simple. So I'm going to get a little bit more thyme. And you might be thinking to yourself, hey, I don't want to go around monkeying around with the leaves. I get that. Well, if you rather, this recipe calls for a teaspoon of fresh thyme in with this marinade that we're putting together. If you want to go the dried thyme route, that's fine. You're going to cut it back by 1/3 because fresh herbs are 3 times, anyone know, less or more potent? They're less potent than dried herbs. So you're going to cut back on that. I just kind of like picking the leaves off because I'm kind of weird like that. Actually, I don't, but I wanted to show you how easy it can be. So I've got my fresh herbs here. Okay.
That would be a good activity for the kids too.
Thank you, Miss Jana. I love that. Did everybody get that? If you're watching tonight with your kids, and I appreciate you bringing that up. If you're watching, if your kids are with you and you are trying to prepare this, this is a great thing that they can do. They can also help by washing the vegetables. They can help by getting, the sheet pan ready. They can help mix the marinade. Get your kids involved. When they get on board and do these great things, then you're going to be having more great meals and more great connections at the dinner table, and that's just going to make a much more positive experience as time goes on. I'm going to cut up the herbs here. We only need a teaspoon, so not that much. This looks great. Questions, comments, thoughts? Who lit their kitchen on fire yet? Didn't happen last week. I'm just asking. Okay. All right. And hopefully it doesn't happen. We haven't had any fire-related things, so I don't know how you would have done that. But look at this. Here's my nice marinade, folks. Okay. See that? Going to get that all mixed up. Easy. Simple. We're ready to go. What we're going to do now is get the potatoes and get those in the oven. We're going to do this in stages. And the reason why, anyone know? The reason why we're doing the potatoes first, take a guess. You got potatoes and you've got asparagus. Potatoes and asparagus. Hard vegetable, soft vegetable. If we cook the potatoes and the asparagus at the same time, by the time everything's ready to go, our asparagus will be absolutely mush. And it's going to, I'm not a picky eater, but smushy asparagus, I think, anyone else agree? Smushy asparagus? Not a fan. Don't like it. So we're going to roast the potatoes for a little bit in advance so that they get nice and tender. We're going to pop these in.
Can I do them smaller?
You absolutely could do them smaller. Now, the smaller you cut them up, the quicker they'll cook. And if, like, I have them in, well, these are probably 2 bite-sized pieces. So again, here I am not following my own directions, but you get the idea. Cut them into bite-sized pieces. When they do cook, they do shrivel up. So these probably are bite-sized pieces at the end of the day. But certainly you can cut them up even more. Potatoes are cut up. We're going to pop these in the oven. You want to make sure, here's another little tip for you folks, is you want to make sure that when you are roasting vegetables or cooking anything in the oven, that you have it spread out enough so that the heat, we got some intense heat up at 450, right? Well, no matter the heat, you want to be able to get that heat to get all around that food. And if things are clumped up too much, it'll just steam and it won't cook the way you want or give the color that you want. So make sure you spread your food out on your sheet tray as I've done, and now you're going to get equal cooking. We're going to pop these in the oven for 15 minutes, give or take, so that they will be, so they'll get nice and softened. So pop those in the oven here. You got any questions or comments right now?
Shelley said that she did dry herbs this year, and it was fun to do.
That's awesome. Shelley, would love to know what was your technique. So what we have done in the past, what we've done in the past is we would take our, like we used to grow sage and thyme. We used to have that lemon thyme. That was so good. I think it finally fizzled out after about 8 years. But you can take those, mint and any of those, take them out of the ground, or you already have them fresh, right? And slowly dry them. I would bundle them with newspaper around just to prevent dust and stuff from accumulating on over time, because they're going to sit and dry out for quite a while. But what I did that method. And Shelley, I'm curious, how did you do it when you were doing it? Anyone use a dehydrator? I was actually just watching an inspiration, another guy that he's a firefighter, and so thanks for doing what you do, Brian. But he dries out he had rosemary and he had oregano, I think, but he had lavender, and I have not done lavender, so I'm going off on a tangent, but I would love to work with, I think lavender would be absolutely amazing. It just smells so good. I love it. Speaking of loving it, I like asparagus when they're cooked to the right temperature and texture. Speaking of preparing asparagus, this would be another great activity that your kids could help. How many of you have kids helping you in the kitchen tonight? Let us know in the comments below. A couple things you want to think about with asparagus. My understanding is when an asparagus plant first starts growing, there's so much energy in it, and it comes out of the ground, and the stalks, like, let's say this is the dirt, they come out like that out of the dirt. Well, when they are first, I got to hang on a quick second. When you want me to do that, you want me to like pretend like I'm putting the asparagus out of the dirt at camera 3? Okay, sorry, I digress. But all right. Getting our communication down, he knows what he's doing. I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing. But this asparagus, when it first is growing, it's very big. And so we think of, like, you go to a restaurant and they say, oh, pencil thin asparagus. In truth, those are the asparagus that are on the last legs of that plant's life, because it's just kind of just getting the last bits of energy. And so they're really thin. They still taste great. They're just not those big gigantic ones that are those, baby asparagus. Kind of sounds weird, but that's how it is. But anyways, back to your kids helping. There's a woody texture at the end of your asparagus, and if you want, you can either cut that or you can snap it off. I personally prefer to cut it off, because if you snap it, a lot of times we get edible asparagus that will be wasted. So just take your knife, and you're going to cut anywhere from 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. You don't have to measure it out, but now you can see we have the fresh tips, and that's going to be really easy to chew and enjoy it. Otherwise, it's going to be tough and fibrous. So I've cut up the rest of these. We're pretty much good to go here. We're going to take these, and we're going to want to cut them up into 1-inch pieces. Something that I always like to talk about when it comes to making great tasting, nourishing foods for yourself, for your family, is get the barriers out of the way. So one thing is, like, what are the kids going to do when you're doing it and you don't want them to keep just sitting on screen time? Well, technically we're on screen time right now, but have them prepare with you. Have them help. Washing the vegetables, cutting the asparagus, setting the table. There's so many ways that you can make that a meaningful and enjoyable experience. But get the barriers out. If you need to go frozen vegetables because you're just like, you don't have time to cut up potatoes, or maybe you like the idea of doing the marinade stuff, but you didn't buy the ingredients. It's okay if you have a bottled balsamic vinaigrette to start. I like to make it from scratch. But again, if it helps you go in a positive direction, doing something that's positive that you were not doing before is progress. So keep it up. You can always incorporate, improve, and build on your skills. That's the whole point of this show, is to help you build your skills and confidence in the kitchen. All right, let's cut these up. Little tip here for you. Again, another tip. I love whipping these tips up. You notice how I'm using the back of my knife I just was kind of just leveling off the ends of the asparagus. You could do that with this, but the blade is going to dull over time if you're scratching it on the board. You hear that scratch? So that's why I just flipped it over. I'm not even trying to clear the cutting board. I'm doing it for my asparagus. But the point is the longer that when you take care of your knife, it gets dull over time. A dull knife is a dangerous knife. So I want to make sure that you are safe and that you keep your tools working for you and not against you. I'm going to cut the asparagus into 2-inch sections, or 1-inch sections. And they don't have to be exact, but very, very simple. I'm going to be pulling out those potatoes shortly. Now that's the TV magic here is your potatoes will not be done when they come out. I'd be surprised if they are, and maybe they will because I'm just giving a super long explanation about asparagus, but this is actually a very, very easy and quick recipe to do. All right, chopping these up. Questions, comments, anybody have, lavender cookies rule. Hey, Caleb, love having you on here. I want to do a quick shout out to Peace Bunny Island. This is I don't want to embarrass him here, but this is a young man who's got a super cool business where he helps connect people with bunnies, and they help create calm and peace into their lives. And I met him a week ago, and really amazing guy, and I feel honored that you're watching tonight, buddy. Thank you so much. Folks, what is going on in your kitchen right now? Are you thinking, man, I should have gotten those ingredients to make this with Chef? Or what? Or are you cooking right now? Where are you at on your journey? I want to know. I want to know. Tell me in the comments below. Let's get these potatoes out. Okay. So our potatoes are getting nice and crispy thanks to TV Magic. They will be. We don't have to show the raw potatoes, but that's okay. What we're going to do, and see, I did it again. You know, it's so funny. I was going through the recipe. You want to follow directions. Do as I say, not as I do. Before you put the potatoes in the oven, you're going to, and hopefully those of you that are following along caught my not doing it, but you're going to take a couple tablespoons of the marinade and put it on the potatoes. And then mix it up and then bake it. That's just life in the kitchen. You roll with it, you make it work. Honestly, I always tell my kids, I'd rather you try and fail and learn from it than get it perfect the first time, because you don't learn when you get it perfect all the time. So you mess it up. Now maybe I'll do it right the next time, but you get my point. When you toss the marinade with the potatoes, it's going to help infuse the flavor. I'd like to actually share another thing about marinades. So this marinade, it's not a traditional vinaigrette ratio, 3 oil to 1 part vinegar or citrus or whatever, but it is so flavorful, and you could pop this on chicken. You could add this to chopped vegetables and have a wonderful chopped salad. So this is a great tip to remember is a marinade can serve as a sauce, as a salad dressing, certainly as a marinade. Now, you make sure that the flavors make sense, because sometimes marinades are more marinade, but oftentimes you can make this do a lot more than what you originally intended. And I'm always trying to give you little nuggets of insight when you're cooking in the kitchen to make life easier for you. So that's something that I want you to take with. So pretend we got our potatoes that are like 3/4 of the way cooked. We're going to take our asparagus here. We're going to pop that down. And then we're going to add a little bit more of our marinade. You want to make sure on the recipe, and this I do remember, I don't want you to mess up, a little bit of the marinade for the potatoes, you roast them, and then you're going to put a little bit of the marinade, about 2 tablespoons, on the asparagus, so combining the vegetables together. Put the marinade with the potatoes and the asparagus. And then you're going to have some remaining marinade for your salmon. And that's kind of where that balsamic glaze comes in. The balsamic glaze is going to be with the potatoes and the asparagus and the fish. So make sure that you reserve some of that. Sometimes I get all excited, as you can see while I'm watching and sharing and helping you tonight, that I get lost in the marinade, whatever that means. Okay.
So first potatoes, cut potatoes, marinate them, put it in the oven.
Yes,
you
ma'am.
take it out, and then asparagus and marinate it.
And why are we doing the asparagus now and not in the beginning?
I know, but I'm not going to say it.
Okay. I wonder who is listening and paying attention. All right. Okay. This is also when you want to get your fish out. Because think about, all jokes aside, the asparagus is going to be, fish is going to take, 10 minutes, give or take. We have a high heat. So it's going to take less time, and then we're going to actually finish it in the broiler. But having said that, you want to make sure that you've got, the lighter vegetables to cook approximately the same time with your salmon. And that's what we're going to do now. We're going to take our salmon. At home, I would not be using gloves. I would just thoroughly wash my hands and make sure they're clean. But it's kind of putsy to have fish and all that fun stuff, so I'm not going to do that. But we're going to portion out our fish, and you can certainly have smaller portions if you wish. That's totally fine. Here's something that I'd like you to think about, ladies and gentlemen, is, and I always emphasize this, some of the big things I emphasize when it comes to cooking with confidence is having the right knife and having just like the right cutting board, having the right tools. So I have one cutting board for raw meats and fish, and then I'll have another cutting board for cooked meats, cooked foods, and produce. So that's something to keep in mind. Otherwise, I cut up all the vegetables first. So now I'm not going to be going back and forth between, cooked stuff, raw stuff, things like that, and I'll avoid cross-contamination. I also happen to switch out my knife just because I'm a little geeky on what knives I use for what. But you don't have to go down that. But just make sure that you're safe in the kitchen, and you can do that by having the right tools for the right job and making sure that you thoroughly wash, rinse your hands and things like that. Okay, I'm going to cut up our salmon here. A lot of salmon will come with the skin on. I like the salmon skin. Not everybody does. The good news is you don't have to fillet it. I mean, if you want to, certainly you can, but you can just cook it with the skin on, and then when you serve the fish, the skin will separate from the meat, and you can have it, and it's pretty, you don't have to eat the skin is all I'm trying to say. All right. Okay, questions, comments, thoughts. I want to know what people are thinking right now.
So about the asparagus, going back to asparagus, you asked the question.
Going back to asparagus. All right.
Peace Bunny Island, his name,
Caleb.
Caleb. So
Caleb
he's
says, my friend Caleb, yes.
Caleb
Peace Bunny
says
Island.
it's not so it's not smooshy.
So it's not smooth. That's right. That's right. Don't want smooshy asparagus. Seriously, it's disgusting. I'm not a fan. But you know what? If I ever come over and you make smooshy asparagus, I will feel so grateful.
Well, I said smooshy. He said mushy.
Oh, okay. Well, mushy is even worse. Well, this is not going to be smooshy. This will be nice and tender, caramelized. Now, you got to think about something too, folks, is on our directions we talk about, 450 oven, and then we talk about cooking the salmon and then an additional finishing touch. That additional finishing touch you may or may not have to do, and that's the broil feature for a couple of minutes just to finish it. You may not have to do that depending on how hot your oven actually cooks. What's nice about the broil is it'll help just kind of bring out some of the caramelization, give it a nice little brown touch, but that may not even be required depending on how well your fish cooks and how it turns out in here. You can see, folks, that I'm just putting the marinade on top. Oh, this is going to taste so good, and it looks so awesome. And it is so easy to do. If you're a busy person like most people on planet Earth right now, and you want to have a great tasting, nourishing dish for yourself, you can have the potatoes cut up in advance, have them submerged in water in the refrigerator. That way they won't oxidize. Have those ready. You could have the asparagus cut up. You could have the marinade cut up. So that when you're ready, you get home or you take off your work hat and put on your parent hat or your other life hat, just take out your sheet pan, line it with foil or parchment or both. I happen to do that just because I like to try to minimize as much waste or much dirty dishes as possible. Put all the ingredients on the pan. Boom, good to go. Easy, easy, easy. All right, we're going to finish this off. We're going to pop it in the oven. And thanks to TV Magic, in about 2 seconds, I'm going to take out that dish. All right, what other questions do we have? We talked marinades. We talked using, hard vegetables versus soft vegetables and the differences on the time. Anybody have an aha, an insight, something new that they learned while they're preparing this? Let us know in the comments. Ask a question.
Amy has a question.
Yes, I may have an answer.
What do I look for when buying salmon?
Appreciate you asking the question, Amy. When you are buying fish, I'm going to step back because this can be fish overall. One of the challenges about being in, and I don't know where everyone's from on the call today, but at least in Minnesota, fresh fish is a premium, and oftentimes fresh fish does not get handled properly. Not often, but at times, meaning it might not be the temperature. I'm getting in the weeds a little bit, so just bear with me. But the temperature could fluctuate from when the fish was caught to when it was, cleaned up and fabricated, cut into the appropriate pieces or whatever, the fillets. And there could be a substantial temperature change in that. So from when it's caught to when it's finally in the grocery store, the integrity of that could be lessened. And so you want to look for clean smelling fish. When possible, buy your fish from a place that has like a counter, and you can say, I want to smell that fish. Now, if they know their stuff, the fish person has got their act together, they're going to say, yeah, here, take it and smell it. And you might be thinking, dude, that's weird. But fish goes bad fast. And for any of you folks that like to cook and you want to use your money wisely and feel good about what you're buying, smell the fish, okay? So it's got to smell fresh. If it smells stinky, it's nasty. Don't eat it, okay? Got to smell fresh. It should also, if you're like, Jana being from Turkey, they had a lot of fish, and my kids are exposed to a lot of different fish, and I like to get the whole fish and give them the head and the tails, and it's all fun, and it looks great. Well, if you are one of those folks that likes the whole fish, make sure that the eyes are clear. If they're cloudy, if it looks sort of mucusy, it's nasty. Don't take it, okay? So I'm wrapping up my little thing about fish. At the end of the day, it should smell good. There shouldn't be puncture, weird indentations in it. It should smell good. It should look good. That's the thing to do. And salmon is no different, okay? Can't emphasize that enough. Fish is one of those things where people are afraid to buy it. They get afraid to buy it, and I don't want you to be afraid to buy it. Just get it from a reputable source, and most grocery stores got their act together, and they're providing good fish. Buying it frozen is absolutely fine as well. That would be something that you can do too. Just make sure that make sure it doesn't look like it's been frozen and then thawed and refrozen. And you can tell that it has because there'll be different shades of the flesh, and it could even have a different texture, look like a different texture because of freezer burn and stuff like that. So, Amy, you probably weren't looking for that answer, but probably you know a lot more than you did, and now you can go to the grocery store with confidence and get that fish. I want you to do it. Let me know if I wasn't clear on that.
Can you mention again how long do you bake and what temp?
For the dish today?
Yep.
All right, so assuming you followed the directions as I prescribing you directions. If you did the directions as I said, you got the 450 degree oven, and then you get the potatoes, get those partially cooked in, you put the salmon with the asparagus, you'll have tossed the asparagus with the potatoes with some of the marinade, and then the salmon will be in the oven for about 10 to 12 minutes, give or take. Actually, now that I'm saying that, about 10 minutes. Just you want to make sure it's firm. And this is actually, appreciate that question asked, because cooking is all about the senses. It's all about awareness. We were talking about the woody stems of the asparagus. We're talking about the texture of the fish. How do you know the fish is done? Well, let's find out. Let's find out right now. We're going to take out our pan of fish, and that looks absolutely amazing. Wow. You can tell it's done by the time, the temp. How about now, just get the senses that I'm talking about. How about the feel of it? I touch it. It's firm to the touch. It feels done. You can always take a thermometer, and for fish, different, whether it's like USDA or certain food safety guidelines are going to say, the higher the temperature. In truth, you do not need to cook it. Fish does not need to be cooked to the typical 160 or 165. That would be drying it out beyond belief. So you just want to make sure it's firm to the touch, and it's just turned from opaque, like it's just turned from like a light pink to a more cooked pink. And it might be, the temperature might be 130 to 140. That would probably even be, 140 is too much, but it kind of depends on the kind of fish, the thickness. But you can always cook a little more. You can't cook less. All right, I think I answered that question. This looks dynamite. This looks super, super tasty. Again, we've got tender potatoes. We have tender asparagus. We've got this beautiful salmon. What I would do here is I might pop the broiler on, as it says in the directions, for just a couple minutes and blast it on top, but we're actually really good. So that's sort of an optional step. When you're using my recipes, I want you to feel that if you need to make some modifications, whether it's a food sensitivity, maybe it's just, I don't have that kind of pan or that kind of bowl, whatever the case is, you can always, improvise so you can keep going in a positive direction. Because that's what it's all about at the end of the day. All right.
Question.
Oh, question, yes.
Thoughts on fresh versus wild-caught salmon?
So let me reword that slightly. Fresh, well, a fish will be, this is a little technicality in those words. A fish will be fresh if it's alive, being caught, and that's different. That's a different thing than the wild caught. So fresh fish versus frozen fish, I would say that, I mean,
or farmed fish?
Whenever possible, go fresh. But realistically, you know, again, in landlocked Minnesota, a lot of frozen fish, as long as it's been properly, you know, prepared, like properly cut up and frozen, and it's handled properly, frozen fish is just fine. Now, fresh fish, again, prefer it. I prefer it, but most people aren't going to know the difference. It's how you cook it. Now, the second part of that question, the second part of that question is it farm raised or is it wild caught? I think that's what was trying. I think that's what was trying to be asked. There's a lot of different philosophies on that. I think at the end of the day, if you are concerned for the environment and the integrity of the environment, meaning whatever is being raised in that space, that the environment is intact and is healthy, you can find fish growers that practice, you know, sustainable, environmentally sustainable practices. So you'd have to look and find out from the fish purveyor who that fish farmer is. And there's a lot out there. So farm raised versus wild caught. I mean, wild caught would be great. Go out and catch a fish. It'd be awesome. You know, not everyone can do it. Here's what I say at the end of the day. If you can get any kind of fish into your life, that's better than no fish at all. With the exception of those breaded fish sticks that look like dinosaurs. Those do not count. And I'm proud to say that my children have not had any of those. And I'm not judging. I'm just saying. All right. This is beautiful. I'm going to let my right-hand gal, Miss Jana, take a plate there.
Thank you.
Okay. You're very, 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 very welcome. Hey, folks. Wait, we got any questions before? Because I think, you know, it's kind of getting that time. I'd wrap it up. Do we have any other questions or comments for tonight?
There's comments.
Comments? I love the comments, folks. Keep bringing the comments.
Well, it's one person doesn't like anything that comes out from water, so they're making it chicken instead of
That is awesome.
salmon.
And I thank you for making that point, because if you take a recipe and you can make that recipe work for you, now you've just had a successful experience. And then you can share that with people. You can say, hey, here's this really cool, you know, balsamic glazed chicken with asparagus dish that I did. You know, if you want to do it with fish, you can, but I did it with chicken. I loved it. Now you're excited. You're building up your confidence. You're getting other people excited. And I know that I'm like overly passionate about this, but ultimately it's up to us if we're going to make it work, having great tasting foods, to have it work for us, not against us. So I love that you are doing that. Appreciate you asking that.
That was Shelly.
Shelly, thank you. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for cooking with me tonight in the kitchen. You know, I hope that you have a wonderful dinner for yourself and for your family. Be sure that you connect with us on Facebook at Chef Marshall Group, at Chef Marshall O'Brien Group, and on Instagram at Chef Marshall O'Brien. Definitely, you're going to want to check us out, follow us on there. And then next week, we've got another super awesome recipe. It's super simple. If you signed up, you already have it, and I'll tell you if you don't. It's going to be our penne pasta with sausage and greens. Now, speaking of dinner, you're having dinner or will be soon. I want to have my Chef Marshall Show family have dinner with us now. So we're gonna get eating here. But thank you again so much. Can't wait to see you.
The books. Where do you get the books?
The books. Oh yeah, okay. They're saying the books. If you liked the recipe last week and you like tonight's recipe, you can go to smartnutritioncookbook.com. You can pick up all of our recipes, because what you are having in these classes, in these shows, are from our cookbook. We have breakfasts, lunches, dinners, snacks, slow cookers, Instant Pot recipes, multi-cooker pot recipes, pardon me, dips and dressings and that sort of stuff. But it actually teaches you how to meal plan as well. So get that, smartnutritioncookbook.com. You're going to love it. You're going to love this. We're going to love this. We're going to have some now. Can't wait to see you in the kitchen with me next week. Have a wonderful, wonderful night.